This is a story about a group of documenters who ventured into the Great Arctic Circle in search of recreation and adventure. But they did expect to get tangled with the dark play of this secret mission. Screenplay. In the middle of the Arctic Circle, two friends arrived for an expedition. They were Ray and Alan, with the latter fuming because they were running late, whereas Ray was a free spirit. With his pleasing personality, he easily communicated with the locals and they hitched a ride to their destination. Alan could only stay in silence, and off they were to the docks where their boat awaited their arrival. It was a cold yet smooth ride to the place, rewarding them with calmness and peace. During the ride, Ray was fidgeting with his necklace out of boredom, whereas Alan was busy with his phone. Their driver questioned their whereabouts and their view of Svalbard so far. Ray has to answer to this, which the driver completely relates to. But Alan was not humored by his jokes. They finally arrived at the place, and before they left, the driver warned them to watch out for bears. They also met one of the crew, the cameraman named Sean. Alan just bypassed him, but Ray reached out to him immediately. They then engaged in casual talk, building a bond as they get to know one another. Now aboard the ship, the captain named Jim engagingly presented each group of passengers. He was super jolly, making the mood refreshing for them all. He also informed of the beauty and wonders of Svalbard, both humoring and somewhat making the passengers on edge. Nevertheless, they were off to venture into the unclaimed waters of Svalbard. Inside the galley, Sean was busy setting up his camera when Alan arrived. Alan apologized for his rude behavior earlier and wanted to catch up with him. Sean then talked about himself, with Alan noting the man was rather boring. Alan requested for him to shoot some more, leaving himself with newly arrived Ray. With Sean gone, the two talked about their new companion, to which Alan noted Ray being the oddball amongst them. Ray asked for forgiveness, and soon the two were hitting it off. Ray then noticed Sean's stuff was left and decided to check on it, discovering it was a vintage recording set. Ray turned on the thing, discovering whale music was recorded in it, a bad rap for Ray. He made Alan wear it, but they immediately scrambled like toddlers seeing Sean was back. He took his things and left the two once again. They then conversed with the German ladies, and surprisingly all of them had a great time getting to know one another. Alan was now fixing himself in the bathroom, disheveled, and totally out of it. His messages were filled with unsent ones addressed to his partner, clearly the cause of his stress. Up deck, everyone was having a grand time amongst themselves, enjoying their stay so far. This time, Ray has started the filming for his show, smiling at the camera so lovingly. They even included Captain Jim on the recording, with the man performing naturally. After the recording, Ray asked why the locals loved the place. What Jim said both intrigued and alarmed them all, saying how the place could both be heaven and hell. His stories were like warnings for them to watch out for the unknown. After they dispersed, Ray wanted to look at the recordings but discovered a wounded bird, sparking his interest. But he brushed this off immediately. Two other passengers approached the bar where Alan was. They were students and were interested in the study of Aurora and its potential harm to human technology. But Alan was more focused on the lovers in front of him, missing his partner dearly. Seeing him in that state, Ray tried to console the man of his problem. He even encouraged him that everything was going to be fine. But Alan was skeptical about this. Their conversation, however, was cut short because of screams outside. They discovered a walrus was acting strange and ended up hurting its calf. This shocked all of them in the boat, with the captain commented this was unnatural. But he escorted everyone inside the ship, not wanting them to see that scene again. Later, Alan and Ray were talking about the events earlier, confused as to what just happened. Soon, the captain announced lunch and everyone gathered at the dock. The crew then proceeded to film, with the captain the star of the show. He was cooking minke whale meat, educating the viewers about its taste and regulations. After the show, Jim asked if they wanted one, to which Ray politely declined. But Alan ate on, upsetting his stomach. Ray was skeptical of the meat, not wanting a taste of it. All then dispersed in their separate activities. Some were eating the minke whale meat, and as Sean continued to film, he discovered one of the passengers was bleeding. Moments later, Sean and Jim discovered something strange happening around them. Sean quickly retreated inside. Sean was contemplating what he just witnessed, bothered out of his mind. Soon, Ray and Alan went up the dock, discovering everyone was nowhere to be seen. They searched for them all, but they could not find a trace of them. Ray and Alan brainstormed the possible scenarios of this sudden disappearance. Sean arrived, relieving them, but they still had to find the others. Sean went to the engine room in the pretense of finding someone, but he made a secret call, which did not reach its receiver, unfortunately. Meanwhile, Alan was checking his daughter's recordings, missing them greatly, but he suddenly coughed and was alarmed by this. Sean was noting down the time slots when he noticed the figures were not adding up. He realized the two might have done something. Ray was still frantic about the happenings, asking for help through the radio, but his emotions were too strong and he could only blur out pieces of their whereabouts. Fortunately, he saw in town nearby and his spirit was up again. Back at the galley, Ray was confused by Alan's sudden change in behavior. He tried to reason with him, but he was totally out of it. He then took Sean instead to show him the town, assuming everyone went there. They then readied themselves for the voyage, but Alan was not in shape. He was acting so strange, like he was possessed by something. Concerned for his wounds, Ray took him inside to clear up. As Ray attended to his need, Ray was still out of it all. Outside, Sean was readying himself for departure, raising questions for Ray about his possession. But he did not mind him and ushered him to leave immediately. With that, they were off to the town. They finally arrived and discovered no one was around. But for their safety, they readied themselves for anything. Once in the town, they entered a building and looked for the local. But the place was completely deserted, and Ray contemplated they should have stayed in the boat. Suddenly, they heard noises, and intrigued they looked for them. But they were met with something graphic and decided to leave. They then contemplated once more on the others' whereabouts. But all Alan cared about was why they were the only ones left behind, and this stuck with Ray. But they continued, hoping to at least see someone. Ray heard a radio somewhere and dashed to where it was. But they still did not meet anyone, angering him more. Alan suddenly got an injury, so Ray proposed they would continue the search instead and come back for him later. In another building, Ray and Sean continued their search, but slowly they are bombarded with questions about the strange happening. Everything was utterly supernatural, and Alan believed it was someone's doing. He then went outside, with Ray's firearm with him, and the others did not know about this. Ray was still business piecing the clues together to mind his friend. Alan continued to move away, totally out of his consciousness. Once, he met a polar bear who was seemingly hungry. Alan talked with it, asking for it would not eat him. Surprisingly, the bear left like he understood him, and so Alan continued his travel. With Sean and Ray alone, they talked casually about each other. But as they conversed, they noticed a building was lit up, so they ran to it to check. Surprised it was working. They searched the place for people and things, but they were met with much weirder things instead. Alan was still outside entertaining himself with his daughter's recording. He then took the flare gun and shot, alerting Ray from afar. Ray went to him and ushered him indoors. Back at the building, Sean informed them he was going out, leaving the two to tend to their needs. Alan shared his meet-up with the bear earlier, but Ray did not catch his drift. He then asked Ray for a drink, to which the latter could only comply. Sean once again tried to make a call, but to no avail, whereas Ray and Alan shared a drink in silence. Alan made it clear he forgave Ray for the morning's event, reassuring the latter everything was going back in order. Meanwhile, Sean was playing his recording once again. Alan had too much and excused himself, but he was in too much pain. Alan then took out a camera and searched through it. It was from one of the German ladies, and it has a recording of them from earlier. But as he watched it all, he discovered something shocking. He wanted to tell Ray, but he was too weak. Sean arrived on time, and Ray immediately stated his plans of getting Alan immediate medical attention. With that, he left to search for fuel, leaving Alan in Sean's care. Once alone, Alan tried to confront Sean, to which the latter was not surprised. Ray began to gather the supplies, taking a kettle of fuel from a truck. Meanwhile, Sean played his recordings to Alan, seemingly calming him down a bit. As Ray went back, Sean also collected his stuff, making it seem like nothing happened. After refilling the boat, staring at the wilderness, questioning why everything was in disarray. Once he was back, Alan was much worse than before, alarming Ray even more. But despite his struggles, he tried to convey the truth to Ray, begging him to watch the video, abiding his friend's request. He watched the video and saw Sean was indeed up the deck and discovered what truly happened. Betrayed, Ray stormed off the place and searched for him. He immediately tackled him and demanded an explanation, to which the latter complied. He shared the light into the experiment some organization was conducting, and Sean was hired to film the events. All were affected by a sonic weapon, intended for a human to become disoriented. But Sean witnessed all of the passengers suddenly vanish in the air. Confused and scared, Ray asked about the headphones, and Sean answered it was a countering device for the sonic weapon. Now he knew why Alan was not himself and how he was still fine. The people that hired him were supposed to get him at the boat, but they are not reachable now. Defeated, they retreated to the building. Morning came and Ray immediately tended to Alan's needs. Sean, on the other hand, was finally contacted by the organization. However, Alan was getting worse by the minute, and he knew in himself that his end was near. He made Ray promise to tell his wife and kids that he could not make it home. But Ray encouraged him to fight, to keep on for his family. But deep down, he was also broken. Alan got off the bed and took a recording of himself saying his farewell to his family. It was heartbreaking, and Ray could only wait until he finished. Afterward, Alan gave him the phone and they silently parted ways. Ray arrived at the dock, contemplating the event earlier. Feeling hopeless, he packed the camera and Alan's phone inside a waterproof pouch. He threw it into the water, hoping for it to drift to safety. He went to the boat and discovered Sean was doing something with it. He defended himself, saying they had to make sure everything was accounted for. On their hike, Ray questioned how Sean was involved in this mess. The latter stated his need for money, and Ray warned him to spend it wisely. Suddenly, they hear a bear's noise, so they ran away. After they cooled off, Sean discovered the organization was here to pick him up, which overjoyed Ray. He went to Alan, informing him of the good news. And even if Alan was not in shape, they went out to the meeting point. Ray inquired about the plan, to which Sean reassured them he was not going to state the whole truth. Ray could only pray everything would be fine. They were back at the mansion they stayed in before, and carefully stationed Alan. Sean was conscious of the time, and said his apologies, leaving the two of them. Alan then inquired Ray if they had fun throughout this adventure. With a smile on his face, he believed this was the best episode they had ever made. Sean went outside and looked afar. Alan, with his condition worsening, was barely hanging, causing Ray great concern. Sean fled the building, leaving them behind. Sometime after, Ray noticed Alan was not moving anymore. He could only hug his friend in that situation to calm himself. Whereas their final hope, Sean, was mercilessly terminated. Hearing the gunshot, Ray was on high alert and scanned the parameters. Seeing Sean was down, he armed himself and was ready for battle. Suddenly, the telephone near him ranged and Ray was hesitant in picking it up. And there ends the story of Arctic Void.